Hello. So we are about to talk about how you detox from sugar today. So if you're interested, stay tuned. I'm waiting for Chatila, my health coach, to join in. Hey, hey. There goes Chatila. Uh-oh. Let's see. Get her on. Uh-oh. Did I do it?
Hi.
Hey, beautiful. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. You look so nice.
Thank you. Thank you. Tuesdays is gonna be my thing.
Yeah.
Do some content on Tuesdays.
Yes, I love it. All right. So today, so yesterday I did part one without you. And I talked about why you might want to do a sugar detox. Today, we're going to talk about how you actually do a sugar detox and, what that looks like and how you can learn more about the sugar detox that we're doing together. So yeah, let's jump right in. So why don't you tell us what well, let's do a recap. Why don't we go through why you want to do a sugar detox, why you would suggest our clients do a sugar detox?
Because sugar is everywhere
Mm-hmm.
and in an abundance, right? I remember when I first learned about the lady who was doing like the I Quit Sugar movement.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard about it, like the concept was so foreign to me because even though I didn't understand as much as I do now, I'm like, how do you quit sugar? Like it's in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what I would tell people. Like it's whether it's yogurt, spaghetti sauce, whether it's the juices that we're consuming, whether it's in the foods that we're eating, the candies, the pies, and all that sort of stuff. It's everywhere, and it's consuming our bodies, and it's overwhelming our bodies, and it's contributing to the reason that you're having like sleep issues, why you're having pains in your joints, why you're feeling fatigued. So doing this sugar detox is going to address all of those things. And then two, it's also going to address your gut health.
Mm-hmm.
Because the bacteria, the bad bacteria that are causing all these issues within your body, they're feeding off the sugars. So we remove the sugars, we kill the bacteria, we heal your gut. So now you have better digestion. Now you have better immune system. Now you have better sleep. Your mood is stable. You don't feel like you're all over the place. So that's what I would tell people. That's why I would encourage people to do a sugar detox.
Yeah. And not to mention all of the other health issues that may result from having too much sugar. So high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, all of these things are actually related to the foods that we consume and primarily sugar. So if it's in everything, the challenge is that, how do you detox from sugar in the first place? I mean, that seems like overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah, the thought of it, because literally if you go to the grocery store, pretty much everything that's in, that center part of the grocery store, it's processed. And it's probably going to have some level of sugar in there. But that also, too, kind of makes it easier when you think about, okay, well, then how do I do this? Cut out processed foods. Cut out things that are in packages, in boxes. Eat things that are in its whole form that you would go out to your garden and get. Yeah, it'll have a little bit of natural occurring sugars in it, but not anything compared to what you're getting if you're getting even, I don't know, a Pop-Tart or a piece of cake, and then it's naturally occurring. Plus, it's also in combination with fibers and antioxidants that work together, so it's not affecting your body the same way as this artificial sugar is. So I would tell people to start there. Just start eating things that you can eat out of your garden.
Yeah.
And if you do that, eat things that are not in boxes, then you're going to go a long way with cutting out sugars.
Yeah, and what's so crazy about it is it's that simple. It doesn't take a lot of rocket science, but the problem or the challenge comes in is because we are inundated with an environment that is so highly sugar loving and sugar toxic that figuring out some of those, like maneuvering through like a day-to-day environment, understanding what has sugar in it, what doesn't have sugar in it, understanding what you can eat and what you can't eat. It seems like it should be simple, but because of our environment, it makes it so much more complicated, which is why one of the things that we do is we organize this program in such a way to help you manifest or figure out the logistics, right? It's the actual, how do I achieve it? How do I get from one step to the next step? Because really, once you do it, then you really, I see somebody posted in their cravings. Yes, once you go through the process and you give yourself that small amount of time to commit to resetting the way your body functions, like we talked about yesterday, once you give yourself that small opportunity to do that, then the cravings go down. And if you didn't watch the live yesterday, I talked a lot about this, but you really want to put your body in a position where it doesn't have to feel like you're fighting to eat healthy, fighting to like avoid sugar. Because once you've, again, mastered it in your body and you understand it, it's those two things. It's your body's response plus how you see the world and the food around you. Once you've been able to manipulate those two things, then it's so much more easier to carry it out in your day-to-day life, right?
Yeah.
Is that something that you see when you're working with people?
Yeah, that struggle between I want to do better, but I also just want to fall back into old habits, and it's been a bad day, and I just want to eat my pie because it makes me feel better. Like, that's a real struggle. But then there's the biology behind that. So I'm glad that you asked that because I want to transition. So I want you to talk to the biology of, like Dejanay said, the cravings that we experience and how our bodies really, our DNA hasn't really changed that much since caveman days, where the sugar was a necessity, right? It was a good thing. You came across all these berries and whatever you gorged, you ate as much as you can because you don't know when you're going to get it again. So we're wired the same way. However, like you were saying, in this environment where there's an abundance of sugar, now it's an issue. Right. So can you speak to that and kind of the biology behind the cravings?
Yeah. So, what's interesting is that I mentioned this yesterday, that sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. And that's why I named my program Cocaine in My Cookies. And the reason why that's the case is because it works on the same part of the brain as substances of abuse, like alcohol, cocaine, heroin, etc. And sex. And any addictive pattern, because what happens is that when you eat sugar, it stimulates a part of your brain called your reward center, and you release dopamine, which is just a chemical that says, ooh, this is nice, this is pleasurable, I like this, I desire this. And then it sends that dopamine over to another part of your brain that says, hey, when I want to feel relaxed, when I want to feel calm, the last thing I did that helped with that was eating a cookie. And so now every time you feel anxious or, frustrated, you go for a really sweet food. Or another example of that would be when you're up late at night, right? And you're exhausted and you're tired. Your body naturally craves sweet things because it says, hey, I'm under stress. I don't know if this is feast or famine. I don't know what's going on here. And so now it's going to crave those foods that help to bring your blood sugar up. So that is the reason why we crave. It's a very natural process, but because we are in this environment that's so toxic, we have to actually do things to counteract our own biology in a sense, because it's not like we could just, it's not like every single day we're eating vegetables and meat all day, where we end up eating just whatever is available. We live in an environment of convenience. And so everything that's convenient also tends to be highly processed. And when something is highly processed, to make processed food taste good, we oftentimes will add sugar to it. So we have to really have strategies. And one of the things that I'm always having to remind people is, it seems like people want to know, why do I need help to do this? I shouldn't need help to change my behavior. But if you've tried to change your behavior, if you don't have the right skills, if you don't have the right tools, if you don't have the right support system, if you don't have all of the necessary requirements that you would need to be successful, it does become very hard. And after watching so many people, try and not be able to successfully change their eating habits, then it makes sense. Oh, okay, well, we just need to support people. And something you said, I just wanted to go back to. So there are a lot of different people I guess in the last 20 years since I've been doing this work, who have done sugar detoxes, who have talked about sugar detoxing. And one of the things that I notice is that particularly within the Black community, we don't talk about it as much, right? Like in wellness spaces, yes, but like in just general population, no. And the reason why this is so important is because who gets hit hardest with diabetes? Who gets hit hardest with obesity? Who gets hit hardest with cardiovascular disease? We do. So if anybody needs to be talking about ways that we can enhance our health by changing our lifestyle, I think it's us, because we are prone to receive the biggest benefit. So really doing the things, and supporting each other and making healthy decisions is, vital.
Yeah.
Did I answer the question?
Yeah. No, you did, and I'm glad that you hit on that piece about the Black community, because it's so true. What I think of is like being in the kitchen making Kool-Aid, right? It's like drowning the whole bag of sugar in the Kool-Aid. Like that's what I think about, like in my memories of growing up, in my experiences with sugar and things like that. And it's almost kind of like it's known, but it's joked about.
Mm-hmm.
How much we consume and the way that we eat, and it's normal. So we normalize it, but then we also have an understanding that we're sick. We do have these high rates of diabetes and things like that. So I'm glad that you touched on that piece.
And I would just say too, just to throw that in there, is that oftentimes what we do is we'll say, oh, the reason why I developed a chronic illness is because it's my genetics. Not really realizing it's not the genetics that's the problem, it's the lifestyle that's the problem. So it's these cultural things that we consider to be very normal, that are really hurting us, and then we blame our genetics for that, and it's not our genetics. So genetics plays like maybe 15% of the chronic illnesses that most people develop.
Yeah. And then the only other thing that I was going to say is that early on, like years ago, I was on like the government assistance. The thing was WIC here in Georgia. And so, they give you the vouchers, you go to the store, you get whatever the voucher tells you to get, right? You think that it's healthy stuff. They kind of push these campaigns about eating healthy and how to feed your children based on the pyramid and all these things. Well, I think I was talking about this last week when I was talking about making my smoothies with the juicy juice, because that's what we used to get with the WIC vouchers. That's what you were supposed to get, juicy juice. Well, one day I looked at the juicy juice and I'm like, do you see
no juice in it?
Sugar is in this juicy juice. And so
don't have no juice.
It starts so early, and I'm like, okay, if you're wanting these women and children and families to be healthy, to eat healthy, then you would give them vouchers for healthier options, but you're not. So then you start thinking about the politics that goes into these things and the sugar dependency that's being created in babies.
Yeah.
So that's what I think about too when it comes to the Black community.
But you know what, this is a larger issue, which again, I keep going back to. So why do we need to be talking about this? Why is it's bigger than, I think oftentimes people are like, hey, I have a sugar problem because I eat a lot of sugar and there's nothing I can do about it. That's one thing that I get. And then also people will say, I have a sugar addiction, but there is nothing that you can do about it. Like, this is out of my control. And the reality of it is it is very difficult because of the environment that we're in and the things that we're being told. So it's really important that we take the knowledge that we have, because there is really good evidence and knowledge about the way we should eat, and what benefits us. There's some basic rules that I usually give people when it comes to like figuring out, trying to negotiate between the grocery store and what maybe the government or the dietary food plan tells you, right? There are some real good strategies that you can use to help figure out what to eat, but it does take some ciphering through, because on all of the brands, they will like try to sell you on, oh, this is low fat, oh, this is healthy, heart healthy, all of the things that you see on the stickers or the labels that try to convince you that these are foods that are healthy. But what I really encourage you to do is to understand food for yourself. I mean, that is like one of the basic skills that the majority of us never learned. Like you didn't learn it. I didn't learn it. I literally had to go to school to learn these things when they should have just been things that were passed down from generation to generation. And like you said, it starts really early. So when we think about how we feed our children, it starts with how we feed ourselves, right? And when we make a different decision, or if we no longer have to fight our own cravings, then we don't have to create that environment for our children either, right? So I think it's one of these things that has a huge trickle down effect and will affect generations of people, just if you make that one choice, right? Like it starts with me, and then so many other people will improve. I'll always tell people it's harder sometimes to get the men onto this, but with the women, if you can get the women to eat healthier, oftentimes it will also trickle down to their husbands. I tell people all the time, or I tell my husband all the time, look, I've added a good 10 years to your life just by marrying me. I promise you're going to live longer, right? Not to pat myself on my back, but because I know what he would normally eat, right?
That makes me think of my daddy. So he would always get on to me about what I was eating, and nobody wanted to eat that, and I just needed to eat the chicken and all these things, right? And for years he did this, made fun of it, whatever. Would come in at 6 a.m. giving my kids like Kit Kats and stuff, and I'm like, what are you doing? Are you insane? All right. So the last, I think maybe 6 months, he's cut out processed food, cold turkey. Mm-hmm. Cut out processed food, cut out all the sodas, cut out all of the sugary food, sweets and whatever. Lost weight, feeling better, sleeping better. And I'm like, oh, so now you're on board. Now he has these boundaries around what he's going to eat. And, I'm not eating that, right? And it's completely changed. It wasn't because of me. I don't know. He just woke up one day and wanted to do better with his life. But now he's on board after all this time making fun of me.
And that's how it happens. It just starts with you. So, I mean, when you make that investment in changing the way that you eat, it really has an impact. But I wanted to see, because somebody had asked a question, Flex Focus Photography, how does your body process refined sugars versus naturally occurring sugars? And this is a really great question, because sugar is sugar is sugar. Now, there are some caveats to that, and I'm going to talk about those in just a second. But to understand that really it's not the sugar that's the problem, it's the dose. It's the amount of sugar that we are consuming. So right now we consume, the average, teenager consumes like 150 grams of sugar a day, which is what our bodies are used to or should be tolerating is maybe 14 at max grams. So you can imagine we're doing 10 times as much sugar as our bodies can actually handle. So there's no surprise that we have an obesity crisis, a diabetes crisis, a heart disease crisis. But with that being said, then there are so there's fructose and there's glucose, but I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. But I do want to say this, is that fructose is broken down in the liver slightly different than glucose. And that is one of the reasons why we have such an epidemic of fatty liver disease. So you see a lot of people, and me and my husband were having this conversation just this past weekend because we were in the Bahamas, and I've always been talking about how, I can see people and see how they're built and determine and see different chronic illnesses. I know that's a strange habit to have, but you can actually tell. So I'm going to try to show you, but when you have people who kind of look pregnant and their bellies are kind of sticking out more than the rest of their body, we call that sort of an apple shape. Well, that's because they're developing fat around their organs, including the liver. And that is something that is very much mediated by having an abundance of fructose because of the way fructose is broken down. But sugar in general can cause this as a problem. So the same thing that causes what we call a beer belly, that's sugar. Fatty liver disease, it's sugar. How do you make I don't know if you've ever heard of that, what's duck? So what do you call it? It's a foie gras is a way that it's fatty. It's like the fat of a duck's liver. How do you make that? By giving them sugar. You don't give it fat. You don't give a duck fat to fatten its liver. You give it sugar. And so really the way that you fatten up something is through sugar. So this idea that fat is the problem has been overblown, and it's scientifically correct. So the sugar is the problem. And so it doesn't matter which type of sugar, it's just the dose of sugar, the amount of sugar that we're getting in our bodies. But fructose also can increase blood pressure. And so fructose in and of itself is a problem. Even though fructose can be found naturally, the problem came in is when sugar was made really cheap and you put it in a liquid form so that it can go into just about any food. So that's where you hear high fructose corn syrup, and why that has such a negative rap. It's because it's cheap and you can put it in everything, and it's in everything. So it increases the dose of sugar that people are consuming from day to day. So the point being here is that, you know, if you find something that has high fructose corn syrup in it, that's just a marker for a processed food. And it's also a marker for high sugar. The other thing that you want to look out for is anytime you're looking at an ingredient list and sugar or one of the derivatives of sugar is the first couple of items on your ingredient list that tells you that this is a very high sugar content and you want to avoid it. So you want to keep your sugar dose down. Now, natural sugars, so a lot of people are like, well, I just use honey, or I use agave, which is also very high in fructose, or I use, cane sugar, right? So there are more natural forms of sugar, but if you have high amounts of it, then it's going to be a problem. Doesn't matter the type of sugar. So really what we want to focus on when you're doing a sugar detox is you want to focus on removing a lot of the added sugars. You want to focus on getting your amount of sugar you get in one day down significantly. And you can do that. And here's how I think about it is I add my own sugar to everything, right? So here's just a quick tip or trick. I add my sugar. I don't let other people add my sugar. So if I'm going to get, let's say, milk. Now, lots of milks have added sugar in them. So I always get the unsweetened milk. And if I want to sweeten something like a tea or a coffee, then I add my own sugar, which I might use like a cane sugar or a coconut sugar to do that, or even honey. And the benefit of doing something like a honey would be honey has other nutrients in it. It has pollen in it, oftentimes will help with allergies. So there are benefits of using honey, but I don't want you to confuse that with that, oh, sugar is so much more healthier than something else. The other bad thing I'll just mention now that's coming to mind is that because of the way we process sugar, I like to use more raw forms because we don't want all the chemicals that you use to sweeten sugar, to process sugar. So again, these are like all the little details that you'll learn during our program. We'll teach you all of these little tricks and trades because it can seem a bit overwhelming, but once you understand them, then you go into the grocery store now and you're like, nope, oh, that's good. That's good. That's good. And it makes the process so much easier that you don't have to feel like it's a drain.
Yeah. Okay. So transitioning. With all that being said, somebody can be like, okay, that's a lot. I don't necessarily, what if I wanted to start today?
Yeah.
What now I'm overwhelmed and I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to eat anything that's in my house because I don't know.
Yeah.
What would you say is something very practical that someone could legitimately start today, tomorrow, to make this shift?
So I like to tell people to start not by removing things, but by adding something, right? And so one approach is to say, when you're thinking about what you're eating, start off by thinking of how can I add more whole foods, right? Because automatically when you add something, you have to replace something else. Something else has to leave, right? And inadvertently, the less healthy things are going to leave. And so really what I usually encourage people to do is figure out how you can get more vegetables into your diet, right? So that's one strategy. Another strategy is going to be make smaller amounts of things. So for example, juice is a very common thing in my house. I bought juice glasses, right? So if you're going to have juice, I really would prefer you to have it out of a juice glass instead of out of a water glass. So you don't actually have to stop doing something, but you may change the habits around certain things. The other thing I would say is when it comes to processed foods, again, it's not so much about removing them as thinking, okay, so can I make a different choice other than the thing that I would normally choose. For example, French fries. You go to Chick-fil-A, they give you an option of whether or not you want to do French fries or maybe fruit. And then you might say, well, fruit is very sweet too. And if you say sugar is sugar, I might as well do the French fries. But the reality is that the fruit has fiber and it has nutrients. That's something that the potatoes don't have, right? So you just make different choices along the way. You don't have to do it cold turkey, but if you do decide to do it cold turkey, then it makes it so much easier than taking this approach, everything in moderation, which I talked about yesterday is like one of my least favorite phrases. Because even though that's true, it really confuses the situation. It makes it more difficult. So you don't have to do it cold turkey, but I usually tell people if you really want to make a big change, which is what most people are looking for, most people just want the results, right? And if you want the results of being able to eat healthier foods, you want the results of no longer having cravings, you want the results of weight loss, then taking a more aggressive approach is probably the way to go, but you can start small as well. That's always an option.
Yeah. And that's where insert we come in and the program Cocaine About Cookies, because what, it's only 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You go and do it, it's a hard reset, and it's not this kind of gradual phase in, baby stepping into it. It's like, no, we're gonna make these changes, but then you also feel better quicker.
Yeah.
Feel better, because what I've learned is your body responds and changes really quick. You remove this stuff, and what I like to tell people in the other program, it's longer, but I tell them like 2-week mark, that's when you start feeling like the upswing of your energy. You're sleeping better and your skin is starting to glow, and people are like, something's going on with you. I'm not really sure what, but what are you doing? So your body will respond really quickly.
And I'm happy you brought that up, because really the goal here is to get you to where you want to go. Like, it's not really about stopping sugar. It's about you feeling better. It's about you losing the extra weight. It's about you no longer having to take as many medications, whatever it is that is making you even interested in stopping sugar. If the thing that's going to be the most motivating is to actually see the results. Right? It's so much harder that if you start to do it sort of trickle by trickle or everything in moderation and you don't feel different. It's hard to convince yourself to keep at it when it doesn't change the way you feel. And so this approach allows people to get quick results, allows you to feel different, and it allows you to know the difference between the way you used to feel, how you feel today, and how you feel at the end of the program. And then you get to make a decision. Do I want to go back there, or do I want to continue to feel this way? But not only that, now there's also, you've learned so much during the process that now you actually have the tools to be able to continue this on, or for you to be able to integrate sweets back into your life in a way that's healthful. So it's not about, a sugar detox isn't about getting rid of sugar forever. It's about resetting your biology so that it's easier for you to stick with a healthier diet. It's easier for you to control the foods that you eat rather instead of the foods controlling you. And it's easier for you to be able to make decisions quickly about the foods that are going to serve your body the most. So you don't have to sit in the grocery store like, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? Because you practice it, you've been supported through that, you've been coached through that, and you have the information to make those informed decisions.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you touched on the fact that you get to decide. This is not about going on another diet, and then you get off the diet, and then you just go back. This isn't that. This is, let me learn my body. Let me allow my body to heal. Let me see how my body responds when it's not chock full of toxins and things that are literally like harming me from the inside out. And then from that place, like you said, you can decide, okay, well, do I want to feel like that again? Yes or no? And then to also kind of like going back to what I was talking about in the reel earlier, I really, at one point, I was like, I'm addicted to chocolate. I have a problem. And I would joke about it, but I was being kind of for real. I'm like, this is an actual problem. So I have gone from there. It's taken a while. I phased it, right? But I've gotten to the point where I'll still have my sweets, but I've transitioned all the way over here. So I'll have like a gelato, non-dairy ice cream, and I'll do it like only once a week. Yeah. Sometimes it's more. Mm-hmm. But that's where I've transitioned to. So it's not like, oh, you got to cut this out forever and I can never enjoy anything great again. It's a couple weeks, you know?
Yeah. And it changes your life. And that's really what we're about. The other thing I was going to mention before I forget is, oh gosh. Oh, so here's the other thing. So we talked about like some of the simple tools about just removing sugar, but I also want to make sure that you know, in anything, any program that I put on, it's a very holistic approach, right? So it's not simply what you remove, but it's also the behaviors. It's also this understanding which foods to remove specifically, because it's not always the sugar. It's also certain foods that cause inflammation, that can cause bacteria changes in your gut that lead to cravings. It's also about optimizing your sleep. It's also about knowing how to organize your kitchen so that it works for you and not against you. It's also being able to set up your whole entire environmental situation. So in the program, we start off with like a whole lot of prep work. Like, what do you need to buy? What do you need to get rid of? How do you need to set up your kitchen so that it works for you? What do you need to do with the people who are going to be around you, tempting you or working against you or saying negative things? What do you do if you're going to go out and eat? What supplements can you take to help support this process if you so want, if you want to take supplements? And there is a supplement that's included in this program as well. So the program is comprehensive so that you can accomplish what you're trying to do, but with a lot of support from a lot of different areas. Where a lot of programs fail, or where I think our program is different, is that we take this full comprehensive approach and we address the root causes of why people are addicted to sugar. Not just as simple as like, remove the sugar and it's it, right? Because I've seen that, right? And I see how that fails. But what you really want is you want a transformation. And so building a program that allows you to make that shift from behaviors, not foods, not food choices, but behaviors that lead to food decisions. And then also having a program that changes your biochemistry and you understanding how you actually change your biochemistry. That is where the power of this program comes in. And so yeah, I think we're at time, but that's, you know, I think if you have more questions, how do they find us, or how do they learn about the program?
So, okay, so if you have questions, you can DM myself or Dr. Peoples directly here on Instagram. If you want to learn more about the program, you can go in Dr. Peoples' her bio. There's a link in there where you can learn more about the program. And I think that's it.
Yeah, and the name of the program is Cocaine in My Cookies.
Yeah.
So in the link, it's in Cocaine in My Cookies. You can also go to www Black Women's Guide, which is BLKWOMANSGUIDE.com/cocaine in my cookies. So you can go there as well. This program is open to everyone. You don't have to be a Black woman. You could be a man. You could be a white woman. You can be whoever. You can do this program. It's still going to work for you. Again, if you have questions, you know how to find us. Instagram is the best way to get in contact with us. And you can register. Program launches October 1st, so you'll be able to join at that time. Thank you, Shatila. The link is in the comments. So thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys on the other side of sugar.
On the other side.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
Bye.